What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 10 college football predictions. As always, I got Ty joining me here to break down this week's games, biggest 12 games we got on the slate this week. But before we get into that, we got to talk about last week. Ty, you beat me by one game last week, so I'm going to let you have the floor here.
Yeah, I think I was impressed with Vanderbilt to start off with. I think, obviously it wasn't the prettiest game to watch, but it just shows that they can win in a variety of ways. And I think that's really going to benefit them because they have two really tough road games down the stretch. And got to shout out our boys, Michigan, keeping Paul Bunyan at home. It wasn't super pretty in that one either, but just got to get the win in rivalry games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for me is I don't want to say is Texas back, but is Texas starting to figure it out? I think is the real question because going into Mississippi State, fourth quarter down 17, come back just to send it to overtime, I feel like is a win in itself. But to actually win this game, even with Arch Manning going out, backup comes in, first patch, touchdown, defense holds. Um, I don't know, Texas, they still only have one loss in the SEC. People have already wrote them off, but they went out. I mean, they're in the SEC championship game, probably going to make the playoffs. So Texas still has everything right in front of them amid the Steve Sarkisian rumors of leaving to the NFL. But this year, it's all right in front of them. Same goes for BYU. A lot of people still don't think this team can do it, even though they're undefeated. And what they started what last year, 7 or 8-0, I think too,
Yeah, I think so.
and then crumbled at the end. But this year they look a lot better. Iowa is a team that's not getting talked about. They still got it. Washington. I mean, there's a lot of two-loss teams that can have favorable schedules and can run the table here. Um,
Mhm.
we'll jump into this yet again, another piss poor week of mid. Um, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, you're only 2 games under 500 and I am 500. So if you're looking for locks, well, you got a 50-50 chance. And yeah, I don't even know if you want to listen to us at any point anymore.
Yeah, not a whole lot to be said. The bet against UMass, that's always a lock, I will
Yeah,
say. I'm
that's
undefeated
a
on
hundred
that one.
percent every time.
So, yeah. But as for the rest, I haven't had a losing week in a while, but still falling below 500. So, got to keep turning it around.
Yeah, and I see that you don't have UMass here. Are they on a bye this week?
On a bye week, yes.
Okay, I figured when I got those picks to put in here that they were on a bye.
Yeah.
We are different in one game. It's going to be that Georgia Florida. I'm getting the 7.5 from Georgia. I think they can cover. Obviously, you are taking the 7.5, or sorry, roles reverse, other way around. You're getting the 7.5 for Florida. I'm taking the 7.5. Tennessee, we're both on that one by 3.5 at home. I think that's a tough one for Oklahoma, reeling going into Neyland at night. Tennessee's figuring it out. Then otherwise, I got two overs in the Vandy Texas game. 45.5 seems like too little. I think Vandy can score 30 by themselves, even on that tough Texas defense, the way that they've been giving up points these last few weeks. New Mexico UNLV. Somehow UNLV finds itself in a shootout every week, so I like the over there. Cal, 4.5 on the road or at home against Virginia. Virginia's been playing games down to the wire into overtime these last 2 weeks, so I like the 4.5. And then Georgia Tech, 5.5 on the road at NC State. I mean, they keep on winning games very comfortably. Haynes King, as long as he's healthy, this team wins by a touchdown or more, so I like that.
Well, I've been betting against UMass every week. I've also been betting on Ohio State every week, and they just continue to cover. The 20 and a half, little bit of a smelly line. Like, how was it that low? But I don't see them having any trouble with Penn State. Nothing left to play for them. I got Texas beating Vandy. I know I've been big on the Vandy bandwagon, but I think it finally comes to a halt here. Texas's defense, I think, is going to have a lot of answers for Diego Pavia in that offense. I'm going with Arkansas minus 4.5. Just an absolute heartbreaker last week for Mississippi State. I think that's really tough to rebound from. So I think they lose at Arkansas this week. And I'm going with Florida in the points. I feel like they've been punching above their weight in games like this. We saw it with Texas. They competed with LSU for a while. I know they've fallen off a little, but that was a competitive game. I see more of the same here. Tennessee, I think the 3.5 is pretty low. I think they're definitely a better team than the Sooners right now. So I think they cover that. And Florida State, I'm going to be completely honest. This has a Vegas knows something because I looked at that. I'm like, how were they favored by 9.5? that's what they want you to think. So give me the Noles minus 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, what a week to start it off with some American football. We got Navy going on the road to face North Texas. And the story, obviously, Navy being 7-0, but if you looked at their schedule, I would hope they're 7-0. It's very bad, but they're still winning games and they're scoring a lot, which give them credit. You know, you got to play who's in front of you. But I think this is their true tough test. Now, if Navy, obviously, I'm rooting for Navy in this one because how can you not root for our country?
Yeah.
So you got to root for Navy. But North Texas, just the better team on paper. They've been figuring it out later. Obviously, Navy is the best rushing offense in college football because that's all they do is the veer with occasional play action. Um, but I think North Texas is going to be more than prepared. They've seen a lot of film on it, and North Texas can score. And I think if there's any team that would be able to get up early and put Navy in a hole, it's probably North Texas.
Yeah, you hit it on the head at the end there. I don't think Navy's really built to come back in games, and North Texas can put points on you in a hurry. So I think if they get out to a quick lead, which I think they will here at home, I don't see Navy being able to keep up with them, and I think the Mean Green run away with it.
Then moving to the game, I think on everybody's watch list, it's going to be Vandy on the road at Texas. And my thing is I'm going with Vandy here because I think Pavia Mania travels. He hasn't really had to prove it this year on the road. The only road game he had that he really had to prove it was Alabama, and they lost. And on the road at South Carolina at the time, it was a big upset, but they're a dumpster fire at this point. So this is really the true tough test until he has to go to Neyland at the end of the year. If he wins this game, I think more people, I know you're on the Vandy hype train, I'm on the Vandy hype train, but I think everybody in the country is going to be on the Vandy hype train if they win this game at Texas. It pretty much solidifies that they are a top 10 team in the country and solidifies that Texas is not going to the playoff this year. So there's huge playoff implications and SEC implications in this game. And I'm just rolling with the hot hand in Pavia Mania because the question mark around Arch Manning, if he's going to play or not, for me, it's too worrisome here in a close game.
I'm gonna be honest. I think if Arch Manning doesn't play, that might help Texas, which feels bad to say, but it might be the case because that overtime, Texas looked like a completely different offense. That pass for the touchdown in the first overtime was something that we really haven't seen Arch Manning do. Put one on the money like that in such a critical situation. And also, I think Texas, like you said, if they lose this game, they're out of the playoff. We thought they were out of the playoff down 17 with 9 minutes to go. So I think now they've kind of been given a second life, and I think they make the most of it. I think their defense, like I said in the opener, they're going to have a lot of answers. Go Pavia and that offense, who struggled against Missouri last week. So I think Texas, it might be an ugly game. That over under at 45.5, kind of a slugfest, and gets a win.
Then moving to 3 o'clock on the Mountain West Network, a new connection that I didn't even know this was even a channel. So we had to search that one up there. But it's New Mexico and UNLV. And UNLV on paper should run away with this game. In real life, they don't run away with games. They lost last week, or coming out of before their bye, they lost on the road to Boise State, gave up 56 points. So we're going to see what this UNLV team is made of now with 2 weeks to prepare for this game. But other than that, I mean, they've been winning barn burner after barn burner after barn burner this whole year. That's why I like the over in this one because, I mean, they gave up 56 to Boise. So why wouldn't they give up 30 to New Mexico? And if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to score more. So I love the over, like I said earlier. And I like UNLV at home. I think Dan Mullen in year one is just turning this program around. And, there could be a few rumblings if he takes his team to 10-2, 11-1 of Dan Mullen leaving UNLV after year one for a better job.
Yeah, maybe Florida again. But I think this will be another barn burner for UNLV. They've had plenty of them. I think this will be another one because this New Mexico team, I think their over under was 2.5 on wins this year, and they have just punched way above their weight. Such a well coached team. So I think they're going to give UNLV everything they can handle. But I think UNLV just has one more answer late in this game. Playing at home is big, and I think their offense is a little more sound at this point in the season, so I think they get a close win.
And probably the game that doesn't have enough eyes on it, unless you are involved in the SEC or these two teams, it's going to be the Georgia-Florida game. And I say that because, well, Georgia, a lot of people just think, oh, well, they should just blow out Florida here in this one because it's a rivalry game, right? Well, I'm obviously on the 7.5 of Georgia covering, but I can see why you're on the Florida side. Fired coach, they got nothing to lose. Their season's already over. They just got to prove to themselves that they're still good. And I can see this one being close at half, but come fourth quarter, we've seen it in previous years. This Georgia team just runs away with it in this rivalry at the neutral site. Normally, in the last few years, because Florida's been bad, it's been about 80-20 Georgia and Florida fans. And I think it obviously plays into Georgia's advantage here. So give me Gunnar Stockton to have a great day. Still only has one interception on the year, and I think that continues after this game.
Yeah, I think it comes obviously I picked Florida to cover, but in the end I think it comes down to Gunnar Stockton making the late play like we've seen him do so many times this year already. Most notably the Tennessee game and the Ole Miss game, just making the plays late in the fourth quarter. I think he'll do more of the same here. I don't think anyone wants to play this Florida team though to finish the season. They're a team with absolutely nothing to lose, interim coach, but still a lot of talent on the roster. So I think they're going to be dangerous. And I think that'll show in this game. But in the end, I think Georgia ekes one out like they have been all season.
Huge game in the Big 12. You look at Kansas State record, you're thinking 4-4. What does that matter? Well, they're 3-2 in conference play. They get a huge win here. BYU and Cincinnati, one of them could lose out. I mean, you just look at their schedules. So Kansas State still has a lot to play for here, but it's not going to matter because Texas Tech, that offense is humming. I know Kansas State just beat Kansas and they're coming off of cloud nine. And I think that's why I think Texas Tech is the logical pick here. Better team on paper. Just looking at matchup wise, it could be a little bit of a look ahead for Texas Tech in a letdown week because they have BYU at home next week. But I just think this team, the oil money continues. I know they lost their quarterback, the backup quarterback, so now they're reverting to the starting quarterback. Just lots of quarterback injuries. And if they can figure out healthy quarterback play down the stretch, I think Texas Tech finishes the season 10-2 at worst.
Yeah, this is now a tougher road game than it looked because Kansas State has kind of found their way back into form. But that being said, I think we're going to see the Texas Tech we grew accustomed to seeing through the first 6 weeks of the season. I think people kind of forgot about them after that Arizona State loss, but this team is still very good. Lots of talent all around the roster. And that defensive line, I think, is going to continue to wreak havoc here. I think it's going to be a rough game for Avery Johnson having them in the backfield all game. So I think Texas Tech uses their defense and gets a road win.
And an ACC battle here where it's been crazy already, and I think the craziness continues because Virginia's going down. You know, they played two tough games the last 2 weeks in OT, obviously beating North Carolina, or for 3 weeks, I guess you could say, beating Louisville in overtime before that, Florida State in double overtime, and then they beat Washington State at home, come back in the fourth quarter, win on a safety. So the last 4 weeks have just been crazy in ACC play. I expect it again. This game's going to come out of the wire. Like I said, that's why I'm on the Cal 4.5, and I'm going Cal outright as well. I think, they have an ACC championship still in reach if they can get this win here. Only two losses in conference. Obviously, would have to win out and have a little bit of help, but I think it starts this week. Cal is an underrated team that doesn't get enough media attention because the other team in Cal, USC, is playing a little better, and obviously UCLA as well. And Cal's just ho-hum, coasting to 5-3, probably going to finish 7-5, 8-4 at worst. And I think they get a huge win of the year to really vault this program moving into bowl season.
I agree. I think, there's been a lot of ups and downs for Cal this year, but they've been a very fun watch with their quarterback. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but he's been very exciting. One of the more exciting freshmen in the country this year. In Virginia, it just feels like they've been just skating by every week since the Florida State game. Needed a 2-point conversion stop to get by North Carolina, who's been a disaster this year. So I feel like this is where it finally catches up to them. Cal feels like they've been right on the cusp of winning one of these games, and I think they get it done here on Saturday.
And we're going to keep our Broncos here up here for another week because it's obviously they lost last week, first conference loss, but so does Central Michigan. They got a conference loss as well. So this is pretty much an elimination game, not only in this battle for Michigan, but in the MAC conference as well. I like the Broncos at home. Both these teams are very mid. on offense, but their defense are above average. So I expect a very low scoring, cold game. I'm assuming the weather up there is going to be rainy and 50s, so probably a grinded out run game. I'm going to go Broncos cover, but it's going to be an ugly cover, like 17-12.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It won't be the prettiest football game to watch. It is on ESPNU if you're really dying to tune in. But I think the Broncos get it done here. You don't just stroll into Kalamazoo, Michigan, and get out of there with a win. It just doesn't happen. So I think Western keeps the cannon here in a rivalry game, and stays in the race for the MAC championship.
And moving to the nightcap, South Carolina was oh so close last week of finally doing it and getting their big win of the year. And I think that was legitimately their best chance and best chance they had for the rest of the year. I think Ole Miss is rolling. The Lane Kiffin memes and rumors, and he's just on the top of the world now in college football. And the train keeps on rolling. Throw some more coal in there because this train is full head of steam. Ole Miss, I think, blows them out late. Probably about a touchdown, maybe two possession game at half, but Ole Miss is going to put it on them late because Lenore Sellers can't get out of his own way. And this Ole Miss defense, they got gashed against Georgia, but they responded well last week, and I think it continues here this week.
Yeah, this feels like a game last year where Ole Miss might have struggled, kind of been looking ahead towards the back half of the season. But I think this team is much more focused this year and takes care of the games they need to. So I think it's going to be more of the same here. Like you said, South Carolina was right there last week against Alabama. But I think that's more of just a gut punch than anything, to build momentum off of. So I think this week Ole Miss takes care of business and gets to 8-1.
Then at 7:30, huge game, Big Ten eliminator, more than likely a college football playoff eliminator as well. USC goes on the road to face Nebraska. And if I had Nebraska in the playoff at 10-2, making it, I got to roll with Nebraska here in week 10. It's put up or shut up time. Obviously, they lost last week, so they got to win out for the rest of the year to even get into the playoff. And I think they can this week because if you kind of look at it, it's Raiola versus Mayada. And I like Raiola at home. The crowd's going to be backing him. And USC, they don't like going on the road under Lincoln Riley. It's not really been their best friend here. So that's why I'm going with Nebraska.
Yeah, this feels like a game that both of these teams really, really need. USC just has not lived up to expectations under Lincoln Riley now in year four. And Nebraska just, I mean, we know the story with them. It's been decades since they were last, really successful. So I think it's a big one for both programs. I know Nebraska's a tough place to play at night, and maybe I'm biased because USC just ran up and down the field on our Michigan Wolverines, but I think it's going to be more of the same. I think that Nebraska defense is very gettable, and USC is finally starting to run the ball with success, something we didn't really see them do the last few years. So I think a run game always travels. So I think USC is going to have success there and get out of there with a win.
All right, and then the game that is the biggest one in SEC play for the week, it's going to be Oklahoma going on the road to face Tennessee. Both these teams at 6-2. It's put up or shut up week, I think, for Oklahoma, because if you really want to be one of those top teams in the SEC, you got to go to Neyland, win this game, because you get rewarded with a bye next week. But it's at Alabama, home against Missouri, home against LSU to close it out. So Oklahoma's got to run the table to even have a chance to sniff the playoff. Where Tennessee, they kind of got a cupcake schedule after this game. They got to win this one, and then it's New Mexico State at Florida, and then Vandy at the end of the year. So better chance for Tennessee to get in the playoff here with a win like this at home. I think they do it. Joey Aguilar in this offense knows how to score. Their worst game that they didn't score enough was 20 on the road at Alabama, and one pick six away from a completely different game. And it could have been a 35-34 game. But I like Tennessee here. They're probably going to put up 38 on this Oklahoma defense. And I just don't trust John Mateer after getting hand surgery and sewing him up at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think I'm just done believing in Oklahoma. I think the Michigan Oklahoma game early in the season really swayed people's expectations of this team. A lot of people thought they had this great defense. I think that game, unfortunately, was a lot more about Michigan than it was about Oklahoma. And that started to show here over the last few weeks. They really got dominated by Texas, struggled at home last week against Ole Miss. So I think going to Tennessee this weekend's going to be tough. Neyland at night, one of the most difficult environments in college football, and I think that's going to show. And like you said, I think Tennessee's going to have a big day against that Oklahoma defense. And I mean, the schedule lines up. They get Vandy at home to end the year. This team could be a playoff team when it's all said and done.
And then a game that you probably wouldn't have ever seen us talk about, but we're going to throw it in here because it's some Sun Belt action. And in the Sun Belt West, this is more than likely a game for Arkansas State where if they lose, they're done, not have any chance to win the conference, where Troy has to win to stay perfect in conference for that matchup later against Southern Miss at the end of the year, which could decide who goes to the championship. And I think Troy's going to do it at home. These two teams match up well on paper, very even game, but home games in, mid-major conferences do matter more, I think, than in bigger conferences because they're used to those environments. So I like the Trojans here at home to get the win, move to 7-2, and maybe throw their hat in the ring at the group of six to possibly get into the playoff.
Yeah, Troy's been an absolute wagon in the Sun Belt over the last decade, it seems. Every year they're 9, 10 wins. I think it continues here. And I think Troy is on a collision course. James Madison Sun Belt, correct? Are they in the Sun Belt?
I
So
I believe so, yeah. Let me
it's
double.
it's looking like a Troy James Madison collision here coming up at the end. And who knows? That could I'm not gonna say Troy's a playoff team, but you never know. Outside hopes. And a win this week will go a long way.
Then the last game, not only for you guys here, but of the week as well. It's going to be Cincinnati going on the road at Utah. My gut is honestly telling me to take Cincinnati here, but my head is telling me to take Utah because you know better. Utah at home, prime time against a team that really hasn't had to prove it against any really good competition. Never goes well for that other team in Utah in this environment. And obviously, Utah, what they did last week to Colorado, not even the whole game, just in the first half, should just solidify why you should take Utah here at home. And that's kind of why I'm going with this one because my head's telling me, why would you not take Utah here? And honestly, maybe even take the 10 because it's going to be a high scoring game. I think Utah can maybe get to 40 in this one. And their defense is a lot better than Cincinnati has seen this year. So give me Utah at home to keep them in the running for the Big 12 conference and knock Cincinnati down.
Yeah, that Colorado first half was borderline murder last week. It was the stat lines were insane going into halftime. I know Colorado's not awesome this year, but just absolute dominance from Utah. And I think a lot of that's playing into this double-digit spread this week for what should be a huge game in the Big 12. And I think Utah, while being a little disappointing so far at 6-2, I still think they have everything in front of them. This team could still make it to the Big 12 championship, still make it to the playoff. Got to run the table, but it all starts this week. And I think they get back on track. And there's no better time to get back on track than Rice Eccles Stadium at night, one of the more underrated atmospheres in college football. And I think Utah gets back on track, especially on offense. I think they've really been struggling on that side of the ball outside of the Colorado game. So I think Devin Dampier figures it out again this week. And I think Utah throws their hat back in the ring in the Big 12.
That's going to be it for week 10. Make sure you guys check out our bracket prediction video that we're going to have coming up soon here for you. Hit that subscribe button to be notified when we drop it. But until next time, Bench Buddies are out.